In this video, I really want to talk about 3 spinnerbait tips. We all know how good a spinnerbait can be. To me, it's a very good fall time lure. So we're actually approaching the fall, so it can be a great lure here to come. Also in the springtime, it's great. And if you live down south, it's a great bait throughout the winter. It definitely has its time and place in the summer, but to me, a spinnerbait really excels in cold water. And in this video, I want to talk about 3 tips, things that I think will help you to catch more fish with a spinnerbait. Now, before we get into the video, this one's brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. It is the month of October 2024, and I am running a package deal over on the Finn Fishing website. You can get a USA-made sun shirt, any of the USA-made sun shirts, and a bass hat, which has a wooden bass badge on it, for $67. So it's a great deal. It's really simple. You can kind of mix and match whatever shirt you want with whatever hat you want, and all you got to do is add the sun shirt you want to cart, add the hat that you want to cart. You will see that automatic discount at checkout. All right, let's talk about the spinnerbait. Now, the first thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to fishing a spinnerbait is that I think that there are a lot of times when we're fishing this bait, we're actually, especially when you are target fishing, that making pitches with this bait, small pitches, is better than making long casts. And so if you think about it, a lot of the exact same places where I flip a jig, for example, are some of the exact same places where I like to throw a spinnerbait. I mean, it might be a lay down log, a stump, a dock. Some of those exact same places where you fish a jig can be really good for a spinnerbait. Now, when you are fishing a jig, you're typically pitching that bait, because a lot of times you are targeting a certain area. You know, you might see kind of the crotch of a laydown and you're thinking that's right where that bass is going to be. Or you see a left or right side of the stump and you think that's where that bass is gonna be. And so you make a jig, you work it through that little area, maybe a 1 foot, 2 foot, 5 foot section, and you bring it out. Now, when it comes to fishing a spinnerbait, a lot of us anglers do the same thing. We sit a lot further back from the cover, we make a cast up to the cover, and then we reel it past that prime area, and then after that you've got another 30, 40, 50, 60 foot where basically that spinnerbait is in dead water. Now, that is not always the case. It's not always the case. This is really when it comes down to target fishing. And I think that if you actually start making more pitches as opposed to long cast, you will actually put your spinnerbait in and keep it in more high percentage areas throughout the entire day. And I'm gonna show you what I mean real quick. Hopefully the camera kind of picks this up. But instead of making those long casts, get right up on the cover that you're going to fish. So sorry, you probably can't see this really well. I'm not really sure. Instead of being cast, instead of making one cast, just think, if I make one long cast to a piece of cover, it hits the water, you bring it past that, then you got to reel your spinnerbait in, and then you make another cast. I think in that exact same time, I can probably pitch my spinnerbait, bam, bring it by a piece of cover, pitch it over to another prime area, bam, and then maybe pitch it next to another area, bam. I think you can make 3 pitches in the same amount of time it takes you to make one long cast. So instead of making that one long cast, get up tighter to the cover and make those pitches, and you might have 3 times better chance at catching fish. So I like to do that a lot, especially when I'm fishing muddy water, which I do often with the spinnerbait. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the second thing, which is trailer hooks. I personally don't use a trailer hook much anymore, especially when I'm fishing around a lot of cover. You know, I noticed a long time ago, this is actually when I was like 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, I was pond fishing a lot. It seemed like when I used the trailer hook, every fish that I caught was on the trailer hook. And at the time, I thought, man, I wouldn't have never caught those fish if it weren't for the trailer hook. But as soon as the trailer hook came off for whatever reason, or I lost it, and I'd go out to a pond, every fish got the main hook, and it seemed like they got it really well. It didn't seem like I caught fewer fish. It just seems like those fish got it really well. And over the years, I started to think that maybe that trailer hook was kind of more or less getting in the way. And then I actually heard, I can't remember who the professional angler is now. I think maybe it was Brian Thrift, but he basically had the exact same sentiment where he said that every time that he would throw a trailer hook, it seemed like the fish got hooked on the trailer hook. And so what I'm saying is that sometimes I think that that trailer hook gets in the way of the fish actually getting the main hook, which is what we want them to get. Now, I totally understand there's definitely situations where a trailer hook is a must. You know, when I'm fishing for smallmouth and I'm making really long casts in clear water, I always have a trailer hook. But when I'm fishing this in muddier water around wood cover, all I simply do now is just use a soft plastic trailer like this. And there's a number of soft plastics you can put on the back of it, but all that soft plastic does is it really just gives the bait a little bit more volume. So when the bass opens its mouth, it can suck in that hook a little bit better. And so that's what I really like to do. And I feel like I have caught a lot of fish. I feel like I lose 0 fish with a spinnerbait. That's another thing I didn't mention. I feel like I used to lose a lot more fish while having a trailer hook on the spinnerbait. And so I don't scientifically know if that is true. It's just something that I feel like I have seen a lot over the years. Now, with that being said, I have fallen in love with this Berkley Power Blade spinnerbait. I fish a number of spinnerbaits. I like the War Eagles. I like even some Strike Kings. But the Berkley one, the hook sits a lot further back on the bait. The main hook sits a lot further back, probably by about a ½ inch than most brands out there. And so to me, it kind of gives you the trailer hook, because it sits so far back, it almost gives you the same hookup as maybe a bait with a spinnerbait with a trailer hook, but you have them on the main hook. And also this bait comes through cover really well. So anyways, and it was designed by Edwin Evers, half by Edwin Evers, who is a great spinnerbait. I mean, he's an Oklahoma angler. That's like spinnerbait central. So anyways, great little bait. But anyways, that's what I think when it comes to trailer hooks. All right, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is I think it's really important for anglers to understand how your blades and the weight of your bait are just going to impact each other. Now, I think that if you are newer to spinnerbait fishing, you pretty much can stick with a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait most of the time. I think a ½ ounce is also a good spinnerbait size. It may be a little bit on the heavy side for some anglers who are just getting into fishing. So 3/8 to ½ ounce, you can just kind of live there. So assuming that you're fishing a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, you should know that you basically have 3 different blades out there on the market. You have a willow blade, you have a Colorado blade, which is a little bit more circular. It's this one right here. And then you have what's called an Indiana blade, which is kind of a mixture of the both. Now, a willow blade typically puts off more flash, but it has less drag coming through the water, where a Colorado blade, especially a big Colorado blade, has a lot more drag. So if you have a ½ ounce spinnerbait that has Colorado blades on it, bigger Colorado blades on it, you can really move that bait slowly through the water column, which is really good, especially when I love to fish Colorado blades in really cold water, because I can really creep that spinnerbait while keeping it in the same water column. Now, if I take that same spinnerbait and put just willow blades on it, I'm gonna have to reel it a lot faster to keep it coming through that same water column. So I think it's really important just to understand how your blades and your weight of your head impact your spinnerbait. That's why a lot of times in the summer when I am burning a spinnerbait, I like to use small willow blades that have very little drag and like a 3/4 ounce weighted spinnerbait. And I can absolutely zing that thing across the top, which is a great way to catch especially smallmouth bass. So anyways, understand your blades, how they are going to impact that bait, and how it can allow you to make a spinnerbait go faster or slower through the water column. So guys, that's my spinnerbait tips. Hope you guys enjoyed. Go catch you some spinnerbait bass this fall, this winter, next spring. It's a ball of fun. Also, don't forget to check out that fin gear, and I will see you guys tomorrow.